Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another reloading chat. So I'm going to load some 9mm, and let's talk about self-fulfilling prophecies here. Because you know what, we've got a lot of people on the left right now screaming, rioting, protesting, talking about fascism, how they want to stop fascism, they're against fascism. You have the anti-fast group, Black Lives Matter, all these people speaking out against Trump. They're making accusations of him being a fascist when really he's not doing anything that's fascist at this time. But they're afraid he's going to, or they think that he is one already or is doing so. And so they're using tactics that are actually, in the long term, have a possibility of actually causing the right wing to be forced to create a fascist regime to deal with what they're doing. And the ironic part is that a lot of what they're doing is itself fascist. For example, one element of fascism is to use force or intimidation to silence all dissenting opinions. All right? And now they're claiming that they're using the tactics of fascists to stop fascists, like when they stopped Milo from speaking at Berkeley, and they had these violent riots and all of this stuff that they're saying they're using the tactics of fascists to stop the fascists. They're using their own methods against them, but that is actually using fascism. Fascism, a big element of it is, again, silencing other opinions. It is not allowing free speech so that only one side is heard, and that side is the current party or state or whatever side. Well, in this case, this is the leftist side. The leftists have kind of taken over the media, and normally only their side is allowed to be heard, and everyone else who disagrees with them is automatically a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, an Islamophobe, a misogynist. They're prejudiced in some way if they don't agree, and they're silenced and they're attacked. And now they've gone to the point of using violence against people for the way that they vote. That is exactly how fascists come into power. That is exactly what the Nazis did. They are using actual fascism while claiming to be against fascism. Now here's the problem with all of this. All right, the right wing all this time, we've had the real power. We've had the numbers. We have all the firepower. We have all the guns in the country. We're the ones who actually have the ability to really use violence to silence people. But we don't. We haven't. But now, think about the tactics that they're using. You have civil unrest being used by the Black Lives Matter type movement. There have been tons of riots, all the Ferguson stuff, all the stuff up in Washington. We've had all these different situations to where they have become violent. They're having riots. They've stopped commerce. They've stopped vital services. There have been cases of fire trucks, ambulances being stopped. All right, just like some of these protesters the other day, they stopped a critically ill person from getting to the hospital because they were blocking the path because they hated Trump. They were upset at Trump. They blocked an ambulance getting to a hospital that had a dying person in it. All right, these people are blocking vital services. So now the current anti-Trump protesters are doing this. Black Lives Matter were doing this to where they're blocking vital services for political reasons with their riots and their protests. They're blocking commerce, blocking emergency vehicles, blocking people's ability to get to their jobs, to get home. They're blocking traffic, blocking vital services. They're out damaging property, committing assaults, arsons, everything else. This is massive civil unrest. And their side is getting more and more violent. Now, they've lost the lawful election in which the media, you got to remember, the media is on their side. But they still lost the elections. The right wing, we hold everything now. We hold most of the governor seats. Means we hold the majority of the country there at the local level. We hold the Senate now. We hold the House. And we hold the White House. We've won all this through lawful elections, through voting. This is not intimidation. This is actually while our side gets less airtime. The media has actually somewhat silenced us, yet we're still winning the popular vote. The other side are the ones behaving like fascists while accusing us of it, but then what they're doing, they're using violence, civil unrest. And now their leaders are publicly calling for it. Madonna talked about, again, public figure, about blowing up the White House. Sarah Silverman called publicly for a violent military coup against the president. The laws actually state you can't make threats towards the president or overthrow the government, even as jokes. So her comedian status doesn't get her out of that legally. All right, that doesn't actually work. You can't do it as a joke. It's still illegal. It does not fall under freedom of speech. Treasonous speech is not freedom of speech. That's not protected by the First Amendment, and the courts have ruled that. So these leaders are calling for violent overthrow, for violence against the current lawfully elected government. What do all these people think if they keep doing this? They keep calling for violence against the government, overthrow, coups, all of these things. If they continue to block vital services that are getting people killed, or stopping people from getting to work, they continue to have arsons and violent riots. Yeah, they're getting arrested and charged with felonies now, but if this continues, what do you think the response is going to have to be? The creation of a more fascist type state to suppress this violent movement that is rising. That's what's actually going to happen. And there's not going to be a choice in the matter. Any government is going to do it that way. It's not like a government that intends to be fascist is going to have to be that way. No, it's because you have a minority of people who can't win the elections. Clearly they can't win the elections. They're not winning the votes. And because they can't win through the popular vote, they're becoming more violent. They're both outspoken physically, but becoming more violent, using violent protest and calls to violence and calls to revolution, calls to coup, to be the voice of their movement because they're losing at the ballot box. The lawfully elected government, what do you think they're going to have to do to deal with this? They're going to have to probably create almost a police state to some extent to deal with this. The National Guard might have to be used. The military might actually have to be used to put down some of these riots if these people keep getting worse and worse. These idiots who are worried about fascism don't understand that they're going to force a fascist state to be created just to deal with their stupidity. And not only are they outnumbered, they're outgunned. Right? These people talk about violent revolution. They're the side that has been anti-gun all this time. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the training. I was talking at the rifle range the other day with a guy who said he knows someone who's really far left who asked him about this. So I think I need to get a gun now that Trump's in power in case we need to overthrow him. And he laughed at him because this guy has been a U.S. Marine years ago, from a different generation. A guy was older than me, and he had his Marine hat on, and he laughed about it and said, well, you might want to get a few years practice in first. And he was dead right. These people don't have any practical experience. They don't have proficiency with weapons, and so they act like they want to have a violent revolution. They're outnumbered. They're going to end up seeing a fascist state come into place just to put down their attempted revolution. And the ironic part is they're behaving violent, but they don't understand. The other side, we've been quiet. We haven't used these tactics. We've been preparing for revolution for years, for generations. And instead of having to have a violent revolution, we were the only ones physically prepared for it. Their side were scared that we were going to have one, so they've tried to ban guns. And in doing so have made their own side anti-gun. They don't have weapons. They're not proficient with them. They don't have ammunition. They don't have the ability to deal with a fascist government. And the stupidity on their part is they should know that they don't have the ability to deal with it. They don't have the ability to deal with the other right-wingers. If the right wing just gets sick of this and decides to deal with it and the police just kind of turn their back, these people are dead. They don't have the ability to even stop the regular right-wing citizens who are armed and proficient with their weapons if they finally just have enough of it. But what they are looking at this point is, a police state. You might see major changes in laws just to deal with the civil unrest that these people are causing and threatening to cause. So for people who are afraid of a fascist state, they really are going out of their way to try to create a true right-wing fascist state. And that might actually be the only alternative. The more we see this stuff happening, the more even I step back. I've always kind of been a libertarian in the last couple of years, but even I'm leaning more towards a more authoritarian right-wing government just to deal with these morons. That we might actually need to do something about them before we can have a true libertarian state. So I'm starting to even wonder, well, since they want a fascism so bad, maybe we need to give them one just to thin their herd out a little bit. so that we can actually have a stronger national identity again, a stronger culture again, and then we can push back in a full constitutional libertarian state. But we're not going to be able to have one with these crazy rioting idiots. So maybe that is the direction we need to go. I'm sitting there going, these guys are going to create it and it's stupid, but you know, if we have that many people behaving like they are, maybe that is the right choice. Maybe we need a right-wing authoritarian state to deal with them. Either way, if they keep doing it, that's what they're getting, whether it's the right answer or not. And it's ridiculous that they don't understand what they are going to force to happen. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.